They say storms reveal what the world tries to hide. That night, the storm chose her. Thunder ripped across the sky like a warning meant for anyone foolish enough to still be outside. Rain slammed into the streets, turning cracked asphalt into flowing rivers of filth and broken dreams. Sarah pulled her rusted cart forward with aching arms, every step heavier than the last. The smell of rotting trash clung to her clothes, soaked deep into fabric she hadn't changed in days. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but exhaustion hurt worse. Birmingham emptied fast when the storm arrived. Store owners slammed metal shutters shut. Cars rushed past without slowing, spraying dirty water onto sidewalks already drowning. Sarah ducked beneath the awning of a closed pharmacy, chest heaving, shoes making a hollow sucking sound with every step. Twine held her soles together. Everything about her life was temporary. That's when she saw him. Across the street, half submerged near a clogged drain, a wheelchair stood trapped by rushing water. An old man sat in it, hunched and trembling, rain pounding against his frail body. No umbrella, no coat, just a soaked gray suit that once meant status, now reduced to fabric clinging to skin. His thin arms strained uselessly against the wheels as water climbed higher. Sarah didn't hesitate. She abandoned her cart and stepped into the street, cold water slamming against her knees. A horn blared as a car missed her by inches, but she didn't look back. Her eyes stayed locked on the man who was coughing now, his body shaking violently. She grabbed the wheelchair just as lightning split the sky. The man's face was pale, lips tinged blue, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Sarah knelt in filthy water, steadying the chair with both hands. "Are you okay?" she shouted over the storm. "Why are you out here alone?" His mouth moved, but the words didn't come. His hands shook not just from the cold, but from something deeper, panic, loss, terror. Sarah recognized that look instantly. She'd seen it before, years ago, in her grandfather's eyes when memory began to betray him. She tried pushing the chair, but the wheels spun uselessly in thick mud. Gritting her teeth, Sarah planted her feet and forced it forward with everything she had. The chair lurched free, nearly tipping the man forward. "Easy," she whispered, resting a hand on his shoulder. "I've got you." He reached into his jacket with trembling fingers and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, barely holding together under the rain. He pressed it into her hand, eyes pleading. The address stared back at her. 847 Magnolia Avenue, Mountain Brook. Sarah's breath caught. Everyone knew that neighborhood. Mansions, money, power. She looked at the man again. At the expensive watch on his wrist, the fine cut of his suit, the leather shoes ruined by mud. How did someone like this end up abandoned in a storm? The man coughed harder, body shuddering violently. Questions didn't matter anymore. Sarah tucked the paper away, grabbed the handles, and began pushing, 10 blocks uphill, through rising water, against a storm that showed no mercy. And she had no idea that this single choice, this one act of humanity, was about to drag her into a world far more dangerous than the streets she was trying to survive. Because saving him from the storm was only the beginning, and what waited at the end of those 10 blocks would change her life forever. Some journeys don't look long on a map, but they can cost you everything you have left. The first block nearly broke her. Water rushed downhill like it had a destination of its own, fighting her at every step. The wheelchair veered sideways, dragged by the current, and Sarah had to angle her body behind it, using her weight as a shield. Her arms screamed, her legs trembled. Hunger, exhaustion, and cold merged into one dull, punishing ache. The rain didn't slow. If anything, it grew angrier. By the second block, her breath came in sharp bursts. The man slumped forward slightly, coughing into his chest. Sarah leaned closer, afraid he might slip from the chair. She tightened her grip, knuckles white, refusing to let go, On the third block, he began to speak, not clearly, not to her. "Elizabeth," he murmured, voice thin and broken, "you came back." Sarah swallowed hard. He reached back blindly, fingers searching the air until she took his hand. His skin was icy. She wrapped her fingers around his, squeezing gently, grounding him the way she once grounded her grandfather when fear swallowed his mind. "I'm here," she said softly, unsure who she was saying it for. The fourth block passed in silence except for thunder and the grinding wheels. Her shoes slipped more than once, water soaking her legs until she could no longer feel her feet. Each step felt like lifting concrete. At the fifth block, the hill rose sharply. Sarah stopped, bending forward, hands braced on the handles, lungs burning. The water rushed past her ankles like it was laughing. She closed her eyes for half a second, just long enough to gather what little strength she had left. Then she pushed, inches at a time, breath by breath, pain by pain. The sixth block brought cars again, fast, careless, indifferent. One slowed just long enough for the driver to shout something cruel before speeding off, splashing them with a wave of dirty water. Sarah didn't respond. She didn't even look up. By the seventh block, the man's head drooped to one side. Panic flared in her chest. She rushed around the chair, fingers pressing gently against his neck, a pulse weak but there. Relief hit her so hard her knees nearly buckled. She kept going. The eighth block changed everything. The streets smoothed. The buildings grew taller, cleaner. Gates appeared. Cameras blinked. Light fixtures glowed softly through the rain like they belonged to another world entirely. Sarah felt it instantly, the invisible line between where she came from and where she didn't belong. The ninth block nearly ended her. Her legs locked, her vision blurred. She leaned against a stone wall, chest heaving, rain mixing with sweat on her face. The man stirred, opening his eyes just enough to look at her. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're like her, she never gave up either." Sarah smiled, though it hurt. "One more block," she said, "just one more." And neither of them knew that behind the gates ahead, wealth wasn't waiting with gratitude, but with hunger. Because the storm was fading now, but the real danger was just beginning to watch them arrive. The storm stopped at the gates, but judgment was already waiting on the other side. The rain softened as Sarah pushed onto Magnolia Avenue. Not stopped, just quieter, like it had said everything it needed to say. The street looked unreal, wide, polished, lined with towering walls and perfectly trimmed hedges. Bronze numbers gleamed on marble plaques, each one announcing a life that never worried about storms. 820, 821, 822. Sarah's arms burned, but her eyes stayed locked on the numbers. 845. Her heart thudded as she stopped in front of 847. The gate stood taller than anything she had ever seen. Iron forged into elaborate curves, gold accents forming a family crest. Two cameras turned toward her, mechanical eyes scanning every inch of her soaked clothes, mud-streaked skin, and trembling hands. She hesitated. Then she pressed the intercom. Nothing. She pressed it again, harder this time. Seconds dragged by, thick and uncomfortable. She wondered if she should turn around, if maybe this was where she stopped. With a low mechanical hum, the gate began to open. Slow, deliberate, like it was deciding whether she was worth letting in. The driveway stretched impossibly long, lined with tall palms and glowing stone lanterns. At the end stood a mansion so white it looked unreal, columns rising toward the dark sky, windows shining like eyes watching her approach. Sarah pushed the wheelchair forward, gravel crunching beneath her feet. Each step felt heavier than the last, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of being somewhere she didn't belong. Halfway up the drive, movement exploded at the front door. 3 men in black suits rushed toward them. Big, built, faces carved from stone, Sarah's instinct screamed at her to run. She let go of the chair and raised her hands slowly. But the men didn't look at her. They stopped in front of the wheelchair and bowed, not casually, not politely, deep, formal, absolute. Relief flooded their faces as one of them spoke, voice thick with urgency. "Mr. Sterling, thank God. We've been searching for you for hours." The name struck Sarah like lightning. Arthur Sterling, the billionaire, the builder of half the city. The man whose face appeared in magazines she used to see in trash bins. Her knees weakened. The guards moved quickly, lifting him from the chair, calling for doctors, radios crackling with orders. The old man looked back at her, eyes clearer than before. "Wait," he said weakly. "She saved me." One of the guards turned to her, extending his hand gently. "Sir would like you to come inside." Sarah took a step back. Inside meant rules, eyes, judgment. She turned to leave. "Don't let her go," the old man whispered. "Please." The gates closed behind her with a final metallic echo. Inside, marble floors reflected crystal light. Chandeliers shimmered overhead. Sarah stood frozen, water pooling beneath her feet, mud staining perfection. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly small in a space designed to make people feel powerful. Footsteps clicked toward her. A woman emerged, tall, flawless, eyes sharp with calculation. She stopped short, lips curling in disgust. "Who let this person in?" The air went cold. Sarah knew that look. She had worn it on her skin her whole life. And she didn't yet know this woman would become her greatest enemy. Because saving a powerful man is one thing, but surviving the people who want him gone is something else entirely. Kindness is rarely free, especially in houses built on power. The woman's heels clicked sharply against the marble as she approached, stopping just far enough to avoid touching Sarah. Her gaze swept from Sarah's wet hair to the mud-streaked hem of her dress, lingering like an accusation. "Guards," she said coolly, "explain why a street rat is standing in my foyer." The word hit harder than the storm ever could. One of the guards cleared his throat. "Ma'am, Mr. Sterling requested she be brought inside. She found him during the storm." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Found him," she repeated softly, as if tasting something bitter. "How convenient." Sarah opened her mouth, then closed it again. She'd learned long ago that explaining yourself to people like this only made things worse. The old man was being wheeled past them now, drifting in and out of consciousness. He reached out weakly toward Sarah. "Elizabeth, don't go." That single word changed everything. The woman stiffened. Her jaw tightened, anger flashing behind her perfect smile. "That's enough," a man's voice interrupted from the staircase above. He descended slowly, tall, controlled, eyes dark with exhaustion. He looked at Sarah, then at his father, then finally at the woman. "I'm David Sterling," he said, "and you're not going to speak to her like that." The room fell silent. David turned to Sarah and held out his hand. She hesitated, staring at her own dirty fingers, but he waited. When she finally took it, his grip was warm and steady. "Thank you for bringing my father home," he said. "I don't care how you look, you saved his life." The woman, Jessica, laughed softly. "And now she wants to be paid." Sarah's chest tightened. "I didn't do it for money." Jessica bent down, pulled a thick roll of cash from her bag, and dropped it into the puddle at Sarah's feet. Bills soaked instantly. "Then take this and leave," she said, "before you stain anything else." Silence stretched. Sarah looked at the money, then she looked up. "I don't crawl for scraps," she said quietly. "I helped a man in danger." "That's all." Jessica's smile vanished. Before she could respond, David spoke again. "Prepare a guest room," he said calmly. "She's staying." Jessica's face burned red. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious." Sarah stood there, heart pounding, realizing something dangerous had just happened. She hadn't just crossed into a mansion. She'd crossed into a war. Because when you refuse to bow, those in power don't forgive, they plan. The hardest part of being saved is believing you deserve it. The door closed softly behind her, cutting off the echo of heels and whispered hostility. Sarah stood alone, unsure whether to breathe or run. The room around her looked unreal, too clean, too quiet, too untouched by survival. A bed larger than anything she had ever known sat in the center, draped in white sheets that looked like clouds made solid. Tall windows overlooked the garden, where the storm had finally surrendered, leaving the world washed and glowing. The air smelled of lavender and polished wood. Sarah's clothes dripped onto the marble floor. She stared at the puddle forming beneath her feet, shame crawling up her spine. Instinct told her to shrink, to disappear, to make herself small enough not to offend the walls. A woman in a simple uniform entered quietly, her eyes kind. "I'm Linda," she said gently. "Please take your time. Food will be ready soon." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. When the door closed again, the weight hit her all at once. She sank to the floor, back against the wall, and cried, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. For the years she spent invisible, for the nights guarding trash bags like treasure, for the people who passed her without seeing a human being. She hadn't cried in years. Hunger trained her not to. In the bathroom, warm water erased layers of grime, revealing scars she had stopped noticing. Calloused hands, sunburned skin, a face aged far beyond its years. 42 years old, looking 60, but alive. When she dressed in the clean blue dress laid out for her, her reflection startled her. She didn't look like a ghost anymore. A knock followed, soup, bread, fruit. She ate slowly, savoring every bite like it might be her last. Another knock came later. David stepped inside, uncertain. "My father has Alzheimer's," he said quietly. "He confuses people he loves." Sarah nodded. "My grandfather had it." He studied her, then spoke carefully. "I want to offer you something, a job, stay here, help care for him." Her heart stuttered. A roof, food, purpose, but also Jessica. "I need respect," Sarah said firmly. "I won't stay where I'm humiliated." David smiled faintly. "Fair." A scream shattered the moment. His father. David ran. Sarah followed. She didn't yet know that this decision would prove everything they believed about her was wrong. Because when fear returns, only the truly strong stay to face it. There are screams that don't ask for help. They beg to be remembered. The hallway was chaos. Arthur Sterling lay on the floor, arms raised defensively as if fighting enemies no one else could see. His voice shattered into hoarse fragments, switching languages, words tangled in terror. Two guards hovered nearby, unsure how close they could get without making it worse. Linda stood frozen, tears streaking down her face. Jessica watched from a distance, arms crossed, impatience carved into every line of her posture. David dropped to his knees beside his father. "Dad, it's me. You're safe. You're home." Arthur didn't hear him. Sarah moved without thinking. She knelt beside the old man, ignoring Jessica's sharp inhale of outrage. Sarah began to hum, soft, steady, familiar. A melody pulled from childhood, from nights when fear felt endless and only warmth could fight it. The effect was slow but real. Arthur's thrashing softened, his breathing steadied, his eyes found hers. "Elizabeth," he whispered. "I'm here," Sarah said gently. "You're not alone." She held his hand. He squeezed back. Minutes passed. Silence returned. When they helped him back into bed, he was already drifting into sleep, clutching her fingers like an anchor. David stood in the doorway, eyes glassy. "How did you do that?" Sarah shrugged. "You don't fight confusion. You sit with it." David exhaled. "Please stay." Jessica turned away, jaw tight. That night, Sarah knew something had changed, not in the mansion, but in how the mansion saw her. Because once you prove your worth, those who fear losing power will do anything to erase you. The most dangerous lies are the ones people want to believe. 2 weeks passed, and for the first time in years, Sarah slept without fear. She learned Arthur's routines, his good hours and his fragile ones. On calm days, he spoke clearly, telling stories of building his empire brick by brick. On darker days, he searched for Elizabeth, panic clawing at his mind. Sarah stayed through all of it. Jessica watched, quietly, patiently, like a hunter waiting for the right moment. The moment came on a bright morning that felt too peaceful to be real. A man in a gray suit arrived with a briefcase and a smile that never reached his eyes. Sarah felt it immediately, that tightening in her chest she'd learned to trust on the streets. David and the man disappeared into the office. Minutes later, David returned. His face was different, cold, closed. "Sarah," he said, "we need to talk." Inside the office, photos lay spread across the desk. Pictures of Sarah entering buildings she'd never seen, talking to people she'd never met, accepting envelopes she'd never touched. "She's a con artist," the man said calmly. "A planned infiltration." The room spun. Jessica sat in the corner, lips curved in a satisfied smile. "This is fake," Sarah said, voice steady despite the terror. "Every word of it." "There's more," the man added. "A criminal record, theft, prison," Sarah's breath caught. "That's a lie." David hesitated, then a scream echoed through the house. "Arthur." Sarah ran. She found him upstairs, bleeding, clutching broken glass, eyes wild with fear. "They're coming for me," he cried. "Don't let them take me." Sarah approached slowly. "Arthur, look at me." Recognition broke through. He dropped the glass. She caught him before he fell, pressing her blouse against his bleeding hand. "Call a doctor," she shouted. David arrived, stunned. Sarah didn't move until Arthur was safe. "You could have run," David said quietly afterward. "He needed me," she replied, and in that moment the lie shattered. Because when truth stands still while fear runs, only one of them survives. Some people are born into strength. Others earn it by surviving what should have destroyed them. The truth unraveled faster than Jessica expected. The investigators' files collapsed under real scrutiny. Timestamps didn't match. Locations overlapped impossibly. A supposed criminal record belonged to another woman, same name, different life. Someone had paid well to blur the lines. Jessica didn't deny it when confronted. She didn't have to. Her silence was confession enough. Arthur recovered slowly. His memory still drifted, but his trust in Sarah never wavered. On his clear days, he insisted she sit beside him during meetings, his hand resting on hers like a reminder of what mattered. "She's family," he said once, voice steady. "Don't forget that." Jessica left the mansion within the month. No goodbye, no apology, just absence. David offered Sarah permanence, official employment, a private apartment, a future that didn't vanish with daylight. Sarah accepted, not because of the money, because for the first time someone saw her strength instead of her scars. Months passed, then a year. Arthur passed peacefully one morning, holding Sarah's hand, calling her Elizabeth one last time. She didn't correct him. At the funeral, the city came to mourn a titan. They didn't see the woman who saved him in a storm, but David did. Because legacies aren't built by wealth, but by the lives we choose to protect. Some storms end in rain. Others end in becoming who you were always meant to be. The mansion felt different after Arthur was gone. Quieter, but not empty. Morning light still spilled across the marble floors. The gardens still bloomed on schedule. The city still whispered the Sterling name with reverence. Yet something essential had shifted, like a heartbeat removed from a living body. Sarah felt it most. She stood at the window of the small apartment David had insisted she take, on the east wing, overlooking the same driveway she once climbed soaked and shaking. Sometimes she watched the gates open and close, remembering the woman who arrived with nothing but resolve and a stranger's life in her hands. David found her there one evening. "You could leave," he said gently. "Start anywhere." "I'd help," Sarah shook her head. I already started right here. She had become something no one expected, not a servant, not a charity case, not a shadow. Arthur had left instructions, clear ones, a foundation. Quiet funding for shelters, caregivers, forgotten people living one bad night away from ruin. And one final line written in shaky ink: give Sarah the authority. She sees what others ignore. Jessica tried to contest it. She lost. Sarah walked into boardrooms wearing the same calm strength that once pushed a wheelchair uphill through a storm. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. People listened because she spoke with truth sharpened by survival. At the first shelter opening, a woman approached her, soaked from rain, shoes held together by twine. Sarah didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, took her hand. "I've got you," she said. The storm clouds gathered again that night, thunder rolling across the city. Sarah stood beneath the awning, watching rain fall, feeling no fear, because storms no longer decided her fate. She had learned something powerful, something no mansion, no money, no enemy could take away. She had walked through the worst night of her life and carried someone else with her. And once you do that, nothing can ever make you small again. Because the storm that tried to break her didn't fail, it built her. I never imagined that the answer I was searching for would be hidden in plain sight all along, waiting for me like a shadow that refused to leave. The air felt heavier as I stepped closer to the truth. Every heartbeat echoed in the silent room, reminding me that some mysteries are not meant to stay buried, but neither are they meant to be uncovered easily. I touched the object that had haunted my dreams, the one that carried decades of secrets, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. Memories that I had long buried rushed back, faces, voices, whispers of promises made and broken. Each fragment connected, forming a picture I could never unsee. And then I understood. The reason, the pain, the absence, it all made sense now. But with understanding came a bitter taste. Knowing the truth doesn't erase the past. It only teaches you how to carry it forward. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of everything sink in. The fear, the sorrow, the endless questions, they were all part of the journey that led me here. And somehow, in the midst of all the pain, there was relief. Relief that the story finally had its ending, even if it wasn't the one I had hoped for. As I walked away, a quiet resolve settled over me. Life would go on, memories would fade, but the lessons, the emotions, they would remain etched into me forever. And maybe that was enough. Maybe it was more than enough. Thank you for staying with me till the very end. If this journey moved you, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. Hit that like button and comment your thoughts below. I'd love to hear what you think about this mystery. Your support means the world, and together we can uncover even more secrets waiting to be told. If you want, I can also craft a super engaging short description and thumbnail text specifically for this last part to boost views and retention. Do you want me to do that next?